we go. Welcome everyone to Charts Chat for March 6, 2018, where we deal with Kubernetes Helm community charts. I will dump in the link here to chat for our fun-filled document on this. And we've got two discussion points listed out already. Both of them are Reinhard's. And so if anybody has any discussion topics, please drop them in and we can go at it. Would somebody else want to run the meeting? Because I've been doing it lately. Okay, I'll do it. Nobody jumps on it, might as well. All right, so the first discussion, yes, thank you for whoever added the Jenkins admin. So the first one we have is a proposal for custom values for testing and linting. If you open up the link, it's to an issue. And the idea here is our default values file, or you know what, Reinhard, I'll let you go ahead and explain it so I don't have to talk.
So, yeah, we quite often have the problems that we can't really test charts. That would be charts that need like something like keys or stuff like that, which we don't really want to commit to the real chart. So we would be able to provide this in extra test YAMLs values. And we cannot use required values because we just can't provide them. So if somebody adds the required and doesn't have a default value, it's just not possible. So we need to have some way to specify values for tests. And so this is my proposal here. Why don't we just maybe have a separate folder where we can put test YAML files in for each file, so this would even allow multiple tests with different configurations if necessary for certain charts. Just run the test with any YAML file in this folder. And this is just a little bash script I put together just to illustrate how it could work. So this is not really, I didn't look at the actual code, so this would have to be integrated somehow, but it shouldn't be too difficult.
So I think this is fine. We talked about having values for CI before, but we might want to consider putting this in the chart folder rather than having a separate directory.
Yeah, it's in the chart folder. I mean, it's a subdirectory as I suggested it now.
Okay, sorry, I thought that was a root directory.
No, within the chart.
Okay. Yeah, and then that folder would also need to be added to the Helm ignore, I guess. Although that's not so much important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good point.
But yeah, this is fine by me. As a side note, I will say that I think charts should really stop using required because in general it's a bad user experience. It's almost better to use kind of if you look at what Minecraft does or some of the other charts where it happily accepts values that are wrong, but then goes and tells you how to fix that. But that's a separate note.
I mean, the problem is we have the required function, and people want to use it, or people do use it, and then notice it doesn't work. So the question is, why do we have it if we don't allow it?
Well, I mean, Helm has it, but I don't think. I don't know. I would say that as in Kubernetes charts, we probably don't want to use it. It's there, but I don't think it really. This is just my own personal opinion. I mean, we haven't really talked about it, but I think that it's probably better if we do it the way Minecraft does it with the EULA, then support the required thing, and we should. If we see charts that are using required, we should either change them to use the other approach, or when we get a PR with someone using required, we can ask them to use the different approach. But yeah, again, that's just my opinion. I don't know what other people think about it, but for me, it's like not a great user experience.
Okay, I'm not familiar with the Minecraft chart. How do they do it? Like have a lift around the whole thing and don't install anything?
So the way Minecraft does it is you can do Helm install stable Minecraft, but then you actually don't get any deployments, and then you get in the notes.txt you get a printout saying error, you need to pass in EULA accepted equals true or whatever, and then once you do a Helm upgrade with that, command, then it goes in sort of deployment, and then you get pods.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure,
Okay,
but
I
as
know,
part-
I know what you mean. We have a few charts that do it like this. I mean, for some charts, we probably will have to do that like this because they need some kind of license. We can't really install anything, but we also have charts that we just, there was a PR where Matt is also on, where he just has suggested to remove any keys because we don't really want to have keys in there, which I think is not good to do, to have keys in there. So that would, we wouldn't have to have this if around for tests. Or we could specify. We would have to have this if around for a real installation, but we could specify values for tests, and we could really test the chart.
Can I throw in just to come back to the Minecraft example, right? You have to opt in for it to create the deployments, right? But that means our CI system for Minecraft never actually tests the deployments that they come up.
That's my point exactly.
And so our CI system isn't actually we're testing it without being able to actually test that the deployments or anything come up. If we want to do that, we need to pass in custom values where we accept that EULA, right?
Sorry, I should have mentioned that was the user experience thing is a separate issue, right? We still need the values file for CI. In the case of Minecraft, yes, exactly. We need to set that EULA to true just to be able to test those pods actually get started up. In the same case, it's the same case with Ghost, I think, where you need to provide a Ghost host, which, presumably we just want to set to something like example.com just so that we get a deployment and we can check that those pods are running. So yeah, sorry, that is just a complete separate topic. So yes to values in general for CI, value files for CI, but I just meant that the required thing was kind of a bad experience in general. Yeah. Sorry, that was a bit off topic.
Yeah, and this will probably, the required and how we handle the user experience, and that'll probably change in Helm 3. Because lots of proposals are changing how we do. The discussions are changing a lot of how we do things in the background. Hopefully, a lot more of the proposal will come out soon. But we're
I mean, there's talk of things like JSON schema and other ways of representing values so that you can hint as to what a value might, the schema for a value should be or something. But without that information right now, the required thing is kind of awkward because Helm doesn't actually doesn't give you a good error message like why this thing is needed, right? Or what it might be. The nice thing about what Ghost does is you can install Ghost and then you get a service, right? Which if you're in a cloud, you're going to get an IP address or a host name or whatever generated for you at some point. So then you can go and upgrade the chart with that Ghost host set to whatever that IP address was set up by the cloud, and you can go and upgrade it. So that kind of flow works pretty nicely, I think. So I think there's probably reasons to do both anyway, but until I think user experience for the required. I think if there was a way for it required to just show a custom message to say why you might need something, that would probably be probably be enough to use it. Oh, is there? Oh,
yeah.
That says why you need it, not just what's missing.
Yeah, there's a thing for the required function to output a message that's whatever string you basically.
Yeah. Oh, if that's the case, then yeah, then that makes sense.
So okay. So just to rein us back in on the chart config files for linting and testing and all of that. Does anybody have any issue with going after and chasing this down? With somebody doing it? I'm gonna take silence means we who are here generally accept it. So the next steps I think would be to have it go past Vic because he knows this part of the CI pretty well, and to make sure that everything looks good there, which I don't see an issue, and just also to run it by the Helm maintainers, because just to see if there's any feedback or anything there from them. I don't see an issue, but if we commandeer a directory, I want to make sure that in the Helm 3 thinking, we're not thinking, that the directory schemas and everything line up for this. But overall, I like where this is going. Some of this may get more complicated when we deal with things like timeouts, timeouts in this testing, because we've already got that. So we'll have to be careful when we start doing more than one config file and how this impacts timeouts on some of these things. But other than that, it looks like something we can go forth with. I like it.
Yeah, I guess the one issue with the timeouts is that we may potentially be running multiple Helm installs and tests after that, right? With this
Yeah,
approach.
so we should have like timeouts for each test run. So like the timeout we have now for each run probably. I mean, this would probably be a very exceptional case that there would be multiple test files in the test. So
we can, and so a couple of things here. Yeah, for different ones, we can do different things. Also, we can probably upgrade to 2.8.1, which is out now. And in 2.8.1, wait is fixed. So instead of constantly checking for things, we can probably use -- wait on install, and then the stuff should come up, and that should help with some of the issues we've had in our CI testing too.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. Okay.
Just quickly, while we're on the topic of CI, is there an established way or place to put extra manifests to actually say run a job to actually do integration testing against the deployed chart? For example, I've been working on, for the Pacona chart, actually running some stuff to insert data in and making sure that data is inserted into the database. Is there an established way or place to put that sort of stuff?
Yeah, there's Helm test. Are you familiar with Helm test?
I am not.
All right. We actually do this in the upstream charts as well. We'll run Helm tests when we do our integration testing. Let me see. Does anybody know an example chart that implements Helm test?
Jenkins has one.
Jenkins, MongoDB replica set, Neo4j. Yeah, there's a few.
I also just pasted a link to the Helm docs.
Perfect. All right, I will read through that. I tried looking for that sort of stuff, but obviously my Google foo wasn't strong that day.
No, that's all right. The docs are not always the easiest to find, but yeah, there's Helm testing capabilities built in, and our CI will actually run when we do. So there's the Circle CI stuff where we don't run Helm test, but when we actually install it and we do the deeper testing, the end-to-end testing, we'll install it, then we'll run Helm test on it, which will run whatever tests are included that are documented here. And so we actually test this upstream every time. And that's where we'll actually run into timeouts, because standing up some Java applications can take a little while, and then running the tests on them and setting them up has sometimes taken a little bit. All right. That's a good question. Let's see. Oh, I got too many tabs open. All right. So that one's good. The next one is also you.
Doesn't me, yeah. I came across the TPL or template function, which is, I think, a nice addition. I was playing around with it. And you can actually, to some degree, get templating in values YAML. And I was thinking if we should kind of encourage using that, or especially since more and more charts use the toYAML function. So just wanted to discuss this. Actually, I think, Lucas, you joined. Didn't you implement that even?
Yes, I implemented it last year.
Maybe if there are questions, you can answer them.
Sure. If there are any questions, I will be happy to answer them. But I think the TPL function is kinda untested because not many people use it. And I'm not sure if there are any interferences if you use other complex template structures in combination with the TPL function.
So I played around with it a little bit. I had to use single quotes, and of course you have to use strings. So it doesn't work for anything else because it has to be valid YAML. So it's kind of tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would really like to see templating in values YAML, but that would be like a full-fledged implementation. There's an issue, but it's not implemented yet, or there's a pull request, yeah, but it's not there.
The thing I'm afraid of with templating, I'm not saying templating in values is a bad idea itself. It's just that the way it's done, I feel like we have to be very careful that we don't just give users a big gun to shoot themselves in the foot with.
Yes, yeah, sure.
Depending on how, like, if people are comfortable with the TPL function, then that's fine. But I suspect a lot of people probably aren't and will want something a little bit simpler to template their values with, if indeed they do that.
Here's maybe a way to help. Do we have any use cases on when we're seeing that this would be used? Like, as a application operator, I need to be able to go do this thing, and that would necessitate that we're seeing the vision of that being solved by templating the values file.
Well, I think
one use case would be if you set application configuration through a value, and in the application configuration you want to reference an URL that is created by the chart or by the release name.
Yes, exactly. Like the example I put, like this affinity block I put there. If I have this in my YAML file and I would want to reference the release name as it's installed, then I would need this. So if you look here, I have the label selector references the template, my chart name, and the release name.
Okay.
So this is something, depends. I mean, if I know before, usually I know what release name I would get when I install my chart, so I don't have to use the template functions. But if I don't know, for example, when we have like in a public chart in the repo, and I want to have this as a default, and I can't do it, So that's the issue.
All right.
If I use the toYAML function, I cannot have any default values in my values YAML that reference any values or release names or stuff like this, any built-in objects.
So for reference, I've added this to the discussion for the Helm meeting later this week in 2 days, so we can start talking about it there. If you're not able to make it, I can try to represent this. I think I've got it. But we can have that discussion there as well to see what the path would be to getting it into Helm, what blockers or any details in that direction from the other Helm course, especially those far more familiar with the ins and outs and pitfalls of this.
I see. Hey, this is Scott. So I was looking at the Helm issue, Helm 1978, where this was introduced, or not introduced, but the issue that ultimately led to it being introduced. And my initial thought was, why not just use config maps for that? It seems like a strange anti-pattern or another kind of layer of inception. But one of the examples here, I'll just paste the link to it, of one of the use cases, just for when that longer conversation happens, Matt, is to potentially call functions on a bunch of files, on a range of files. I mean, it seems like one use case.
Yeah, I've seen people use it that put files into a different folder, not in the templates folder, and which allows them to create templates from it, and solves some problems.
Yeah,
there was a pull request recently. I don't remember what it was, but there was a reason why they put it in a separate folder. Just don't remember.
I mean, I definitely come from I guess school of engineering where you want to, or when your code has any indirection in it, you need some kind of comments explaining what the hell is going on. Why you're doing this, what it is in fact doing, if it's really non-obvious. Mostly why, but maybe that's something that we could recommend as a possible point of discussion for charts. For the charts repo, I mean.
Yeah, I think one of the things about this is how to make it an easy user experience, which either means it needs to be intuitive or explicitly documented how to do it. And so whatever the path is, it should either be something that's just so implicit anybody can figure it out with minimal documentation and pointers, or an example with documentation should be very clear so we have a best practice. Or yeah, whatever it is.
I agree about examples. That would go closer to what I was suggesting. It wouldn't necessarily have to always be in line.
Yeah, but then we got best practices, then we can, PR review against those, all this fun stuff, right? So that would be what I would be going for, is we've got a clear direction on how to handle this coming out of our discussions. And then it is either a PR is made against Helm to make a change to enable some of this, or a PR is made against the Helm documentation to add examples on how we do this in details.
For now, if it's helpful, I'll put just a note on the use of the TPL function in that consolidation issue for charts best practices. If that'll help people remember to keep it in line with that, or I could also just ignore that if there's a better place to do it. What do y'all think? Should I throw it in there or just kind of leave that primarily for the primitives?
Yeah. I'm not sure if we should even add a best practice around this. My intention today was just basically to discuss this because I came across it, and I wanted to know if anybody else has used it here or was even aware of this exists. And we should really be careful and maybe not proactively just suggest it to people to use it, kind of.
So I actually didn't know that this existed. My take is that this is going to make values files like really, really complicated. Specifically for the use case that's outlined here, the affinity use case. I mean, there's a certain point where we have to draw a line between, every single thing that you can configure in any Kubernetes spec versus what we make available in the values.yaml, and this is potentially crossing that line. But the files globbing use case is an interesting one as well. I think we should discuss it with the Greater Helm folks, see what they think about it. And I don't know that best practices is the right way either. I think we should kind of see what people are coming up with and how people are using this, and then when we have kind of more info on how people want to use this, then we can make them probably a more educated decision about whether it's useful or not as a whole. But I see it as a way to get around some complex cases, but not necessarily as something that should be generally applied to every chart.
All right, are we good on this topic for now?
Okay.
Awesome. The next one, and I dropped a link in, is the Jenkins failing CI test. For those of you who don't know, this is the test that runs every hour against the tip of Kubernetes master. And the Jenkins test is failing and has been for some time. We've done things like extend timeouts. We probably need to get in and add some more troubleshooting code. And I'm trying to remember who was working. Lockie was the one who was last working on this last week, actually. He was poking at it. So do we have anybody who, we've got a few things we can do with this. I mean, we can pull the Jenkins test out until we get it fixed, although it would be nice to have it fixed and start putting some other tests in.
Do we know if it's failing in our pull request CI infrastructure as well?
No, it's not failing there.
Okay.
It passes on pull request. It fails when running against the tip of master, and it's running right now. Let's see.
Now, do you have an example link to the failed test?
Sure. You can
I ran into some weird issues that made me bypass Jenkins altogether, like the LTS image itself, the upstream LTS images. It has some latent bugs.
Yeah, if you go to any of these test runs and you go over like a red spot on one of the blocks that failed and you click on it, it will actually open up to the run for it, and you can see the artifacts, build log, and all of it. And so I dropped into chat here. It's the UI for this is in Kubernetes, and you can actually see, by the way, you'll see they've exposed anytime the word error is used. It's a really simple function. If we find the word error, we're going to bubble it up and highlight it so you can, even if it doesn't return something, that'll end up happening. And so like in this case here, it failed when running Helm test and the transport closed. That was the failure here.
Yeah, that sounds like a timeout to me.
It is a timeout. You'll see that here we're using wait, and it times out. You'll actually notice that Helm install, by the way, takes a very, very short period of time, like 42 seconds. Now, this is a Java app, and when we run it in our pull requests, it takes a lot longer than that to start up. But in this cluster, it starts up super fast, which makes me wary on it starting up. What we probably need to do is update this to add more both debugging when something fails. So if it fails to install, let's go iterate over all of the containers in all of the pods in the namespace and get their logs. And let's display any other kind of debugging information. We probably need to do some stuff like that just so we have a better view of what's going on.
Is there any... Go ahead.
It's interesting that transport is closing error. We've seen this on our cluster a lot recently in connection with Helm wait. So actually, usually the Helm install goes through, but right in the middle, the transport closes. So the chart installs correctly, the release is marked as pending or failed, and the transport closes. And this happened since we switched to regional clusters. So we have now multi-master on GKE. I had never seen this before, but just for quite a while since we are on a regional cluster, this happens. Might be, I don't know, I haven't really found a lot on this, so it might be related with the load balancer kind of, that of the API server. I don't know, that there's a problem. So, I don't know. So it's not a timeout, it's not a wait timeout in Helm.
Yeah, you've experienced this in GKE?
Yes, in GKE, and I also had it locally when I did a kubectl proxy or something.
Okay. We need to keep. Okay. So it might be when it goes through a proxy.
Do we have a regional cluster?
This cluster here is just a normal GKE cluster.
In one zone, single master.
That's a good question. That is a very good question. Vic is normally the one who knows all these things, but he's not here today. Let's see if I...
So Anirudh was the person who set this up originally, Foxish on Slack. So maybe we should get in touch with him.
I mean, regional clusters are available since, I don't know, been available since like, or for like a half a year now, or maybe 3 months, I don't know.
Has there ever been any discussion in the past about basically if the tunnel gets closed to recreate it and continue, like on the Helm side of things? Because I've run into this issue a lot before, and I resulted to rolling my own Helm test. Does it make sense what I'm asking?
Josh, you mean the tunnel from whatever's running the command, the Helm test command?
So when you get the error that the transport, that's basically that the tunnel to tiller has been, it's basically gone away, right? It's expired. Is there a way for Helm to intercept that type of failure and reopen the connection and continue what it was doing. I mean, it might just not have come up. I'm just wondering if that's something we would want that, or. I'll take that as a no. I don't know.
I definitely don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
I've not heard of that. It is a good question because Helm is with long-running operations that are guided by Helm. That's kind of
So I
maybe
basically
yeah.
I had written a plugin before that takes that tiller tunnel MVAR, and I forget exactly, but it basically caught that transport issue and would just basically reopen the tunnel.
Just reconnect. Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, we probably need some reconnect logic if this happens. That probably wouldn't be a bad pull request against Helm. Try to reconnect to tiller if we had a disconnect of some kind. Somebody wants to reapply logic. Now, it's a gRPC connection, and I'd be curious why, because gRPC, doesn't it have the reconnect with backoff in the client? So if somebody wants to go poke at the Helm side of this, to see what's going on with Helm and tiller.
I can't say I have the cycles to do so, but that's something I would definitely be interested in.
Yeah, I don't in the next few weeks either. But if somebody wants to,
I'll put something in the note. I'll put something in the notes about it.
What's this issue here? 34.
Yeah, I can take a look at it.
Okay.
And I also found an issue about this transport is closing on long operations if you have a load balancer in front of the API server or tiller that I posted.
This was closed 25 days ago. Does that mean it was fixed and we are not on the... There was a keep alive added to the client 26 days ago.
Yes,
We are
but
on
I
a version older
for
than
2.8.2.
It was what?
It was scheduled for release 2.8.2.
It's scheduled for 2.8.2?
Yeah.
What do we have in 2.8.2? The keep alive was scheduled for 2.8.0. And then the... All right. What do we have in 2.8.2? 2.8.2 has 2 open issues left. Okay, we've got 2 issues left. If anybody wants to jump on that, I know we were wondering when 2.8.2 was going to come out. We can probably release it if anybody wants to jump on those. And one of them is, they both have to do with weight. Oh, interesting. I'll probably dig into that for this then. There was a pull request against the testing to add some better output, I'll say this, on the Jenkins CI test failure, but it actually fails under a whole bunch of situations. It passes for some things, like if a pod only has 1 container, you can grab pod logs and it's fine because it sees there's only 1 container and it does it. But if you've got 2 or more containers, it throws an error and says you got to choose the container. And so you actually have to look at each of the containers and then iterate over them to make it work in all situations. And it didn't account for things like that. So we haven't gotten feedback on the PR, but there is one to get some better test information, and we probably need to jump on that. If anybody wants to get in the loop on it, it would be appreciated. But what do y'all think? Do you think we should remove Jenkins from the loop until we get it fixed, or try to fix it in the short term?
I'm thinking remove it temporarily, just realistically. There are often plans to, I mean, it can be iterated upon, right?
I don't know. It's not a release blocker, so I would vote for just trying to fix it.
Oh, I misunderstood. I thought it was blocking something.
It doesn't block anything.
Oh, never mind.
These tests are run against head master of Kubernetes. So, but it's not a release blocker. So if they fail, that doesn't block any releases on their side. So, but it's not, it's not tied to our repository necessarily.
I see. So the only thing that it would be blocking, sort of, would be new PRs against other PRs against that chart.
So that's the weird thing, because in our infrastructure it works fine.
Oh.
Yeah.
Huh.
So yeah,
Okay.
and it's actually using a different script. So we actually don't use -- wait. We kind of poll to check if the pods are running, but the script that does this uses -- wait.
Yeah.
So I just ran that exact command locally on Minikube, and I got that same error. That's Minikube locally.
With wait,
Yeah.
if you remove wait and try to do this, does everything work?
Yeah, it seems to.
All right. It's an issue with wait. And there's 2 open issues with wait, and we made changes between 2.8.0 and, or maybe even 2.8.1 and 2.8.2 on wait. So it looks like wait is finicky. I have been paying attention.
We may also want to align the scripts that's doing the test on Kubernetes with the same one that we're doing in PRs, just so that, if we add debugging capabilities like getting the logs of the containers, we get that in both places. So we may want to talk to Foxish about whether that's possible, because right now it's done by a Go script, which is in the repository.
This all should be possible. If you go trace it, it calls a shell script that calls the Go script. So if you go into our repo, the current testing runs.
Oh yeah, it's the Helm test e2e.sh.
Helm test e2e.sh, and then that calls the Go script. We could alter that script to do something else altogether, and it would just do that when those tests are run every hour.
Yeah, I think that's what we should do.
And then we could just pass in something similar, yeah, to do Helm test and wait. Yeah.
And then that would actually fix it in the meantime, until -- wait is fixed.
And we'd get the better logging automatically out of it.
Yep.
One of the things that does happen with the current script, we'd probably need to update it for here and just make it similar, is when something fails, it automatically exits all future testing. And we wouldn't want that. The current tests are pretty nice because the way that they do it, tells you which ones pass and which ones fail of the charts. You're actually going to see, isn't the Go file, it actually creates the right XML files too? Is that in there? Yes, it actually creates test suite XML files that are then read. And so that's one of the nice things about the Go script. And so we might be able to somehow wrap it or pipe it or update it so it would be similar but different. So that way we can get that same kind of visual output.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, if there's a way we can wrap around that. So maybe like one of these things should just be calling out to a shell script that just wraps the Helm install part or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it could wrap the Helm install, we could use the same command. And then we could even drop into the verify script. So we could do something similar here.
Yep.
All right. Adnan, since you get it, do you want to write up the issue on doing this? So we have an issue for traceability?
Sure. Yep,
Awesome.
I can do that.
Thank you. All right. Let's see. All right, so we do have 2 more things. Oh, you're writing it in. So if we're okay with this one, I'd like to jump to the next one, which is the network policy best practices, which is what I think Joe's here to talk about.
Yep. So yeah, I actually got a ping. I think it was it from you yesterday about this?
It sure was, because you gave a best practices talk at the Helm Summit. And I thought if you gave a best practices talk, you could document some stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. I like documenting things. So yeah, I have what I'm actually going to be doing with that is writing up the best practice as a PR, and then separately doing a PR against the Weave scope chart that I maintain just sort of to implement it so that there's a working example. And then as those two PRs move through, if any changes need to be made to one or the other, then the idea is at the end we'll have the actual documentation and a working example that we can say, hey, yeah, this was developed in parallel with that. It actually does the thing that we said you should do.
Sounds great.
The question is to me, does it make sense to have network policies in a chart? Together with the chart, like every chart has their own network policy bundled?
Not necessarily for
I mean,
every.
or would you do this like rather separately? I mean, on our cluster, I have a separate chart for network policies. One chart that creates all the network policies, for example. So, because
Well,
this is more in an ops corner, right, than in an application installer corner, kind of.
Well, so the reason that this occurred to me in the first place was because the Weave scope chart actually has two components, one of which has to talk to the other. And so if you're in a cluster where you want to be able to lock the cluster down and only let those two components talk to each other, then you may want to implement network policy. And I mean, I don't know, from my ops perspective, putting in firewall rules for an application has always been part of the application install. So, I mean, the one thing is you don't necessarily have to have network policy for a chart. If it doesn't make sense, obviously you wouldn't be required to just have an empty network policy or something. The other thing is that the practice that I'm advocating has, just like we do with RBAC, there's an enabled flag. So you can say, no, I don't want the chart to do it. I want to do it myself.
Yeah, sure. I guess it depends. For Weave scope, it certainly makes sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, real quick, sorry, Joe. What's your GitHub username, if you don't mind?
O.M. Kenzie, K-E-N as in Nancy, S as in Sam, E-Y.
Okay, cool. Do you mind if I put you on, assign you to the thing you just, I think, volunteered for to document the best practices around network policy on this issue?
Please feel free.
Okay, cool. There's a line there, but nobody's next to it. No one had their name next to it, so.
This is also one of those things where Helm is a package manager, and this kind of walks the line of configuration management, which is a tangential issue. And so we should be careful, mixing configuration management with package management. And I just put that out there to consider as we're doing this. All right, thanks for getting involved. Yeah, and so let's see. The next one, or the last one I have on the list here, is the no built-in reconnect for the transport layer. Long-running Helm commands until the tunnel should be reopened. Yeah, we should bring that up over in the Helm call. So I will. I'll take the action and bring this up with the Helm folks. I wonder if something's breaking it prematurely because I thought gRPC reconnected, but if not, you're right. All right, is there anything else?
There was an open question that someone was asking in the charts channel about just one of the charts. I think it was the Redis high availability chart. There's a question about...
It was the Rabbit MQ HA chart.
Yeah, let me get that issue. There was a question about stateful sets and why those were removed. There was someone answered it, but it wasn't very clear.
Oh, that one.
And I think the question was, yeah, why ultimately? or is that something that we just chalk up to say, okay, sounds good enough, or does anyone really understand what the problem is there? I don't know if we have time for that here or not, but
Wait, it was the Redis one you're talking about. Sorry, this is from yesterday.
yeah, exactly. There was there was a thread with like a ton of comments on it. So it didn't have a lot of visibility, but yeah.
Who owns the Redis one?
Good question.
Redis HA?
I'm looking. Does it have an owner's?
Oh,
Sorry,
it
give me
does.
1 second here. Oh, it does. Okay. You're right. You knew that.
It does. It's a couple of people that I loosely know. I think it would be this is the question where we should probably ping the owners and ask them. Were they the ones who merged it? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Does somebody want to take chasing this down? Do you have a few minutes? I don't have a few minutes today or tomorrow.
I can at least ask. So, am I missing something? There's not an owner's file within this chart.
Which means one of us had to do the merging, but the chart maintainers are in the chart YAML.
Right. Okay. Oh.
And that's who to ping.
Oh, sure. Right. Okay. Yeah. I'll do that. No problems.
Yeah, and if they are both, by the way, if you want to take a moment and see if they're both members of the Kubernetes org, you could see about creating an owner's file and PRing it so they get pinged on their reviews and stuff. Right? Just saying. Owner's files are a good thing.
Absolutely happy to do that. I haven't gone through that process, Matt.
Of creating an owner's file?
Well, no, I have done, different versions of that, but in getting people within those owners files connected with the org.
Well, I would just see if they're already members.
Okay.
If not,
Sure. That's
when I start poking them. How to get them members of the Kubernetes org is documented on the Kubernetes community repo in the membership doc. And there are literally, it's send an email here, here's what you need, and here is a template you can copy and paste into your email. It's a step-by-step direction, and the requirements are very explicitly stated.
Right.
So even a trained chimp like me can figure it out. All right.
I have something really quick if we have a minute.
Yeah.
So I'm currently the only owner in the Chart Museum owners. I'm trying to get people more involved, and my big issue is if I myself am submitting the change, I can't approve my own thing, which I think is probably a good thing, but I don't want to have to bug you guys. So I've been talking to people about getting involved, and they're interested, but I was talking to Matt actually on the side, and they need to be part of the Kubernetes organization. Is that kind of just a paperwork thing, or do we really want people in the organization that are strong contributors?
You want people in the organization who are trusted. So the big reason to get people to be part of the organization for these purposes is because we're not running our CI system. So there's charts, or we use Circle CI, and some other things use Travis and stuff like that. But Kubernetes operates its own CI system. And that CI system is built on top of Kubernetes clusters that we stand up and manage. Some of them we stand up and tear down many times per day.
No, yeah, you don't gotta. Yeah. I get
it's a trust issue. Right. Are these people contributors, reviewers, people who are engaged in part of the project, and do we trust them? And if that is the case, then we're okay giving them access to things like our CI system so that their stuff automatically runs without needing to update a test, and they can be in owners files and merge stuff in because they've proven themselves to be trustworthy and they're actually contributing and involved.
So I don't want to take too much more time on this. I totally get that. There's one individual who pretty much wrote the whole chart. I mean, I did the initial version, but he made everything configurable and added all the different.
Okay. He just
stuff
did it
like
in
that.
one pull request rather than multiple.
Right. He's got nothing else under Kubernetes, and like I feel like.
Has he reviewed anything else?
No.
Like gone and done a review
I mean,
of anybody else's stuff?
I don't know. He's with Cloud Posse. I don't know. I can look into it, but I'm wondering what the level of technicality is for membership.
Multiple.
Is it just 2 or more? Just 2 or more?
2 makes it multiple, yeah. 2 or more.
Okay.
And those can be code contributions, reviews. It can be a bunch of different things. Go look at the
I'll
document.
basically have them say, hey, add this sentence to the README, and I will approve it, and then we'll get you in.
Yeah, and then he's got 2 reviews or he's got 2 commits in or 2 PRs in, and now that qualifies for the multiple.
Okay.
Have they contributed to Chart Museum itself? Because that would.
That was actually my other question. Does the Kubernetes Helm org count?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Kubernetes Helm org is proper owned by Kubernetes as a whole at the moment. So it is just Kubernetes as an organization, not as a GitHub org, but as an organization, owns a whole bunch of GitHub orgs, and that is one of them. And so if you point off to there, that should qualify. And if anybody complains about it, then let me know.
All right, that kind of is all I need to hear then.
Okay.
That's great. Awesome.
Wait.
All right. Is there anything else? Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week. And remember that next week in the same time slot, we have our office hours. So if you just have general questions or you want to come along for the ride and help us review charts or get into the whole reviewing and try and squash down the PRQ, please, same time next week, we'll be back with that focus. It's office hours and for anybody to come ask questions and talk to us or to help us review stuff. Otherwise, have a wonderful week, everyone. Thanks.
See ya.